So I want you to picture this, right? You're operating in a historically male-dominated, aggressively traditional musical genre.
Oh, heavily male-dominated.
Yeah, exactly. The kind of genre where the so-called guitar gods look a very specific way, and the division of labor has been, set in stone for the better part of a century.
Right, everybody knows their place.
Exactly. Now, I want you to imagine a young woman walking into that space, completely redefining the technical limits of the instrument, sweeping all the legacy awards, and doing it all while boldly navigating a visual-first entertainment industry with total, irreversible body hair loss.
It's an incredible image.
It really is. Today, we are immersing ourselves in a deep dive into the life, the music, and just the relentless evolution of Molly Rose Tuttle.
We are looking at a trajectory that takes a kid from the tech-heavy suburbs of California, drops her into the deep end of American roots music, and just watches her actively reshape its boundaries.
Yeah, our mission today is to explore the mechanics of her playing, the history she upended, and the really profound intersection of extreme vulnerability and virtuosic armor. It's a story about mastering a tradition just so you can dismantle it.
And that tension, between tradition and disruption, that is the defining theme of her entire journey.
For sure.
We aren't just tracking a list of tour dates and album releases here. We're examining a roadmap of highly intentional and often really risky artistic choices.
Right, because she doesn't just play it safe.
Not at all. We're talking about an artist who reaches the undisputed peak of a specific musical mountain, plants her flag, and then just turns her back on it to find a completely unmapped, wilder mountain to climb.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because to understand why she disrupts the genre so effectively later on, we really have to look at where she started.
And her starting line is actually a geographical contradiction.
Yeah, it totally is. She was born on January 14, 1993 in Santa Clara, California, and raised in Palo Alto.
Right, which, if you know anything about the Bay Area, Palo Alto is the beating heart of Silicon Valley.
Exactly. You've got Stanford University, venture capital firms, the dawn of the dot-com boom. I mean, it is a world completely obsessed with the digital future.
It's a far cry from, the misty rolling hills of Appalachia.
Or the front porches of Kentucky, where Bluegrass was actually born.
Exactly. Yet here is Molly Tuttle picking up a guitar at age 8.
And by age 11, she's already playing on stage. And she's learning all of this from her father, Jack Tuttle, who is this respected bluegrass multi-instrumentalist and a pretty prominent music instructor out there.
See, what's fascinating here is the environment she grew up in because it functioned as this highly concentrated incubator.
Oh, so, just because of the isolation from the South?
Yeah, exactly. Palo Alto might seem totally disconnected from the roots of bluegrass, but that physical distance actually required a much more deliberate engagement with the music.
Oh, I see. They couldn't just absorb it by walking down the street.
Right. They weren't just passively absorbing the genre by living in Nashville or rural Virginia. They were actively studying it.
That makes sense.
And Jack Tuttle wasn't just a casual weekend picker. As an instructor, he possessed a deep pedagogical understanding of the music.
Right, he could actually explain the theory behind it.
Exactly. He understood the architecture of a fiddle tune, the mathematical precision required for flatpicking, and the specific rhythmic drive that makes bluegrass feel like a freight train.
So it's less of an organic, informal jam session on a porch and more of a rigorous apprenticeship.
Very much so.
It feels akin to growing up in a family business, honestly. But instead of learning how to balance a ledger or stock shelves, you're learning how to execute a lightning-fast G-run on a dreadnought acoustic guitar.
That's a perfect analogy.
But I want to weave in something really crucial here because you cannot separate her musical development from her personal reality.
No, you really can't.
Around the age of 3, she was diagnosed with alopecia areata, which very quickly progressed to alopecia universalis.
Which means she lost all of her hair.
All of it, completely and irreversibly before she even started kindergarten. And if we think about what it means to be a kid and then a teenager, growing up in a place like Palo Alto in the late 90s and early 2000s.
Oh, an era of highly curated teen pop.
Exactly. Intense peer pressure, magazines everywhere. That level of physical difference carries an immense, just crushing psychological weight.
It undeniably does. And when you look at the psychological function of virtuosic playing, especially for a child navigating something as visible and isolating as alopecia universalis,
Right.
the instrument often becomes a shield. Bluegrass is incredibly demanding.
Oh, the speed alone is terrifying.
Right. It requires thousands upon thousands of hours of isolated, repetitive practice just to build the muscle memory required to play at those high tempos.
So it's an escape, in a way.
More like a focal point. For a young girl dealing with a condition that makes her stand out in a way she literally cannot control, the guitar offers something she can entirely control.
Wow.
The technical mastery becomes her armor. When she stepped on a stage at 11 years old, people weren't just looking at a kid with alopecia.
Right, they had to deal with the music.
Exactly. They were forced to reckon with a musician who could just outplay most of the adults in the room.
That concept of virtuosic armor is so compelling. She was just pouring everything into this tradition. And she was heavily influenced by female role models in the genre early on, right?
Oh, definitely.
Good.
Icons like Laurie Lewis, Kathy Kallick, Alison Krauss, and the legendary Hazel Dickens.
Right, we'll talk more about Hazel later. But by 2006, at just 13 years old, she records an album of duets with her father called The Old Apple Tree.
At 13.
I know. And by 14, as a freshman at Palo Alto High School, she's actually recognized locally for preserving this heritage music.
Which is such a wild juxtaposition.
It really is. Think about that.
Yeah.
You're a teenager in a California high school during the absolute peak of the iPod and digital piracy. And you are dedicating your life to preserving an acoustic Depression-era art form.
It just demonstrates a remarkable internal compass. I mean, she wasn't bending to the cultural gravity of her peers at all.
Not even a little bit.
She was deeply anchored in a specific lineage, and she was pressure testing this knowledge constantly. By the time she was 15, she had formally joined the family band, the Tuttles, with A.J. Lee.
Right, and that ensemble featured her siblings, Sullivan on guitar, and Michael on mandolin.
Plus another young prodigy, A.J. Lee, also on mandolin.
And they weren't just playing school talent shows, They self-released Introducing the Tuttles in 2011 and Endless Ocean in 2013. They were a legitimate touring performing unit.
Playing in a family band is basically a masterclass in nonverbal communication.
How so? Because they know each other so well.
Exactly. When you share DNA with your bandmates, the rhythmic synchronization and the vocal blend, which is often called the blood harmony in roots music, it just becomes second nature.
Blood harmony, I love that term.
It's a real phenomenon. You learn how to arrange a song, how to weave in and out of a melody, and crucially, how to leave space for the other players.
Which is hard for young players to learn.
Very hard. This was where she took the academic theory she learned from her father and forged it into live improvisational instinct.
Which brings us to a major crossroads in 2011. She graduates high school, and she has this incredibly tight, supportive incubator behind her.
Huh.
She's already a recognized traditional prodigy.
Right.
But instead of just moving straight to Nashville to join the session circuit, which is what everybody does, she makes a very different choice.
A huge pivot.
Yeah, in 2012, she heads to Boston. She earns merit scholarships for music and composition to the Berklee College of Music.
Which is a massive institution.
It is. Now, I have to challenge this move a bit. The mythology of bluegrass, and honestly folk music in general, is that it is a raw, inherited tradition.
Right, the front porch mythology.
Exactly. It's supposed to be learned by ear, passed down through generations, not formalized in some sterile classroom in New England. Doesn't taking bluegrass into an elite academic institution like Berklee risk, stripping the soul out of the genre?
That is a very common criticism, but I'd argue it's based on a fundamental misunderstanding of bluegrass itself.
Okay, tell me why.
We tend to romanticize roots music as simple or uneducated, right? But the founders of bluegrass, particularly Bill Monroe, were fiercely demanding, highly technical architects.
Right. He ran a tight ship.
Very tight. Bluegrass is not just a loose folk jam around a campfire. It's a highly structured, mathematically complex genre that actually borrows heavily from jazz and blues improvisation.
So it's more like acoustic jazz.
In many ways, yes. So going to Berklee wasn't a betrayal of the folk soul at all. It was a recognition that to push the music forward, she needed a wider harmonic and rhythmic vocabulary.
Right.
Berklee served as an incredible laboratory for her. She didn't go there to learn how to play bluegrass. She already knew that.
Right, her dad already taught her that.
Exactly. She went there to learn how to play everything else and to see how other musical frameworks could be grafted onto her acoustic foundation.
And the bluegrass establishment clearly didn't view it as a betrayal either, because her recognition during this Berklee period is just staggering.
It really is.
While she's there, she receives the Foundation for Bluegrass Music's first ever Hazel Dickens Memorial Scholarship.
Which is huge.
It's a profound passing of the torch. Hazel Dickens was a pioneering voice for working-class struggles and women's perspectives in a deeply patriarchal genre. To be the first recipient of an award in her name is massive validation.
Absolutely.
Then, she wins the Chris Austin Songwriting Competition at Merlefest, which is essentially the proving ground for elite acoustic songwriters.
Right. Winning that puts you on the map.
And on top of that, she even performs with her father on A Prairie Home Companion, which was a massive national broadcast platform.
So she's really operating on dual tracks here.
What do you mean?
Well, on one track, she's being anointed by the traditional establishment. They're giving her awards, inviting her to big festivals. But on the other track, behind the scenes in Boston, she's actively tearing down stylistic walls.
Right, because Berkeley is a global melting pot.
Exactly. It forced her to collaborate with musicians who did not grow up speaking the language of bluegrass at all.
And the perfect example of that cross-pollination happens in 2014 when she forms an all-female group called the Goodbye Girls.
I love this band.
The lineup is fascinating. You've got Molly on guitar, Alison DeGroot on banjo, Brittany Carlson on bass, and Lena Johnson on fiddle.
A powerhouse group.
And their sound is described as a blend of bluegrass, jazz, and Swedish folk music.
Yeah.
Now wait, you mentioned she was expanding her vocabulary, but Swedish folk music seems like a massive leap from the hills of Appalachia. How do those styles even connect?
It sounds crazy, right? But it's actually a brilliant fusion when you understand the mechanics.
Okay, break it down for me.
Well, bluegrass is heavily defined by its driving, relentless 44-time signature. It just pushes forward like a train engine constantly.
Right, very aggressive rhythm.
But Swedish folk music, particularly forms like the polska, is often played in 34 times, and it has a very specific asymmetrical swing.
Asymmetrical swing.
Yeah, the second beat is often slightly delayed, which gives the music a feeling of limping or leaning into the phrase. It breathes differently.
Wow, okay. That is very different from a train engine.
Exactly. Furthermore, Swedish fiddle tunes rely heavily on modal scales that sound almost minor or ancient to the Western ear.
Compared to what bluegrass uses.
Right, compared to the bright major mixolydian scales that are so common in bluegrass.
So how does a bluegrass guitar player adapt to that?
By learning to play underneath a Swedish fiddle, Molly had to completely rewire her internal metronome. She had to learn how to accompany a rhythm that breathed and hesitated, rather than just driving straight through it.
That must have been incredibly difficult.
Oh, for sure. And by adding jazz theory into the mix, she learned how to navigate highly complex chord substitutions. She was learning that a traditional acoustic instrument is not confined to its geographical origins.
That's fascinating. And they actually put this out into the world. They released an EP in 2014 called Going to Boston and a full album, Snowy Side of the Mountain, in 2016.
And they toured Sweden multiple times, too.
Right. Around the same period, she also released a duet EP with the fiddler, John Maylander. So she is just constantly testing these new boundaries.
Constantly experimenting.
But eventually, the Berkeley laboratory phase has to end. By 2015, she takes all of these cross-pollinated influences, the California Bluegrass Foundation, the Swedish folk rhythms, the jazz theory, and she moves to the commercial epicenter of country and roots music, Nashville, Tennessee.
And moving to Nashville is the crucible.
Because everyone there is good.
Because it is a town overflowing with virtuosic guitar players. To stand out there, you cannot just be technically proficient. Everybody is technically proficient.
Right, that's just the baseline.
Exactly. You have to have an entirely distinct voice. And she arrived with a highly evolved, deeply personal musical language.
And she didn't wait around for a gatekeeper to grant her an audience either. By 2017, she's ready to make her mark as a solo artist, and she crowdfunds her debut EP, Rise.
The decision to crowdfund is really telling, actually.
Oh, yeah. Why?
Because it bypasses the traditional Nashville A&R structure completely. It proves that she had already built a dedicated coalition.
Like the fans she made along the way.
Exactly. The California Roots fans, the Berkeley academic crowd, the Merlefest traditionalists. She brought her own leverage to the table. She didn't need a label to tell her she was ready.
And Rise is a powerhouse debut. Produced by Kai Welch, it features heavy hitters like Daryl Scott and the Milk Carton Kids.
Amazing guests.
Yeah, and she forms the Molly Tuttle Band, pulling in top-tier talent like Wes Corbett on banjo, Joe K. Walsh on mandolin, and Hasi Chiachio on bass.
That's a killer lineup.
It really is. And this momentum catches the attention of Compass Records, run by the legendary banjo player Allison Brown, and they signed her in 2017. And I gotta say, Here's where it gets really interesting.
Oh, this is the turning point.
That is the year everything shifts.
Yep.
The tectonic plates of the bluegrass industry fundamentally move.
Because we are talking about the 2017 International Bluegrass Music Association Awards.
Yes. At the 2017 IBMAs, Molly Tuttle wins Guitar Player of the Year. She was the first woman in the history of the organization to win that award.
The very first.
Let's just pause and let that sink in for a second. Decades of history, generations of players, and she is the first woman to ever hold that trophy.
It's monumental.
To understand why this is such a seismic event, I think we need to dive into the physical mechanics of what she is actually doing on that instrument.
Because she isn't just strumming chords.
Exactly. The industry specifically recognized her mastery of three incredibly difficult styles:
Ooh.
flatpicking, crosspicking, and clawhammer.
Right.
So break down for me why mastering these three specific techniques makes her such an anomaly. Like, let's start with flatpicking.
Okay, let's start with flatpicking because that really is the bedrock of the bluegrass guitar hero.
Right.
Flatpicking involves using a standard plectrum, or a pick, to articulate fast, intricate melodic lines. Now, in early bluegrass, the guitar traditionally just played rhythm, while the fiddle and banjo took the solos.
Oh, so the guitar wasn't the star originally.
Not at all. But pioneers like Doc Watson and Tony Rice brought the acoustic guitar forward as a lead instrument.
Gotcha.
To flat pick at a professional bluegrass level, you have to execute 16th notes at tempos well over 130 beats per minute.
That is blindingly fast.
It is. It requires a brutally precise right-hand technique. You have to float your wrist above the bridge and use minimal pick depth to strike the string and immediately release it.
So you can't dig in too deep.
Exactly. It's an athletic feat of micro-movements. And Molly plays with a tone and a velocity that rivals any of those historic legends.
Okay, so that's the speed and the melody.
Sure.
What about cross-picking? I hear that term a lot.
Cross-picking is a technique developed heavily by players like George Shuffler. So imagine the rolling, cascading sound of a three-finger banjo.
Okay, yeah, that rapid-fire rolling sound.
Right. Cross-picking attempts to recreate that syncopated wall of sound on a guitar using a flat pick. You are constantly crossing over adjacent strings in a specific pattern, usually down, down, up, allowing the notes to ring out and bleed into one another.
Oh, so it sounds like multiple guitars playing at once.
Exactly. It creates a lush, harmonic bed. It is incredibly difficult because you are constantly skipping strings at high speed without looking at your right hand.
Wow. And then there is clawhammer. Now, my understanding is that clawhammer is fundamentally a banjo technique, right? Like an old-time mountain thing. How is she applying that to a dreadnought acoustic guitar?
That is really where her true innovation lies. Clawhammer is an old-time Appalachian technique where, instead of plucking upward with your fingers, you strike downward on the strings with the back of your index or middle fingernail.
Downward, that seems counterintuitive.
It is. And while you strike down, your thumb drops down to catch the bass notes or the drone string. It creates a deeply percussive, almost clucking rhythm.
Okay, but on a guitar.
Applying this to the acoustic guitar is exceptionally rare because the strings are under much higher tension than a banjo, and the string spacing is a lot tighter.
Ah, so it physically hurts more, and it's harder to hit the right strings.
Yes. Molly puts down the flat pick entirely, uses her fingernails, and generates this incredibly funky, driving, ancient-sounding groove on the guitar.
That's wild.
And by fluidly switching between the blistering speed of flat picking, the lush arpeggios of cross picking, and the percussive drive of clawhammer, she just presents a complete self-contained orchestral approach to the instrument.
And to take all of that immense technical firepower and use it to shatter a glass ceiling, I mean, it forces us to confront the historical gender politics of the genre.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, bluegrass has historically operated with a very rigid gender division of labor.
Right. Women were allowed in, but only in certain spots.
Exactly. Women were permitted to participate, but usually within specific boundaries. They were welcomed as vocalists, often relegated to the high harmonies.
Or they played bass, maybe?
Yes, they were accepted as bass players, holding down the foundation, or they played rhythm guitar. But the role of the virtuoso, the lightning-fast flat picker, the aggressive banjo shredder, that was an inherently male archetype.
Right, the guitar god.
The industry built a mythology around the guitar god, and that god always looked a certain way. By winning Guitar Player of the Year, Molly didn't just win a popularity contest.
No, she proved a point.
She dismantled an architectural pillar of the genre. She proved that the virtuosic narrative could be embodied by a young woman, and she forced the old guard to acknowledge it based purely on the undeniable metric of her physical skill.
And it was undeniably a paradigm shift, because she proved it wasn't a fluke. She won the exact same award, IBMA Guitar Player of the Year, again in 2018.
Back to back.
Back to back. It's like a rookie completely upending a veteran-dominated sports league.
Mm.
That same year, she was named the Americana Music Association's Instrumentalist of the Year, proving her impact was spilling over into broader roots categories.
I was everywhere.
She really was. And I love what she does with this newfound historic platform. She doesn't just pull the ladder up behind her. She uses her leverage to elevate other women.
Oh, you're talking about the supergroup.
Yes. In 2018, she forms a supergroup called the First Ladies of Bluegrass.
Mm.
And the lineup is just staggering. Molly Tuttle, Allison Brown, Missy Raines, Sierra Hull, and Becky Buller.
That is a collection of absolute masters.
Every single one of them is a vanguard on their respective instrument.
It's a phenomenal statement. By assembling that specific group, she was visually and sonically reinforcing the fact that women were not just participating in bluegrass, they were leading the technical evolution of every single instrument on the stage.
She's collaborating everywhere at this point. She's working with Billy Strings, who is another generational talent, tearing up the flat-picking world alongside her.
They are quite the duo when they play together.
Oh, mind-blowing. And she translates all this momentum into her solo recording career. In April 2019, she releases her debut full-length solo album, When You're Ready.
Which is fantastic.
And then, when the global pandemic shut down the entire touring industry in 2020, she didn't just go dormant. She pivoted and released a covers album called But I'd Rather Be With You.
It was a really smart move.
Right. It kept her audience engaged and highlighted her deep appreciation for songwriting across all genres.
Well, her solo work during this period was crucial because it proved she wasn't just a technician.
Oh, that's a good point.
The danger of winning Instrumentalist of the Year is that you get pigeonholed as just a shredder.
Right, like, oh, she plays fast, but can she write a song?
Exactly. Her solo albums proved she was a compelling vocalist and an incredibly thoughtful songwriter. She established herself as a complete artist who could carry a project under her own name.
Which makes her next move so fascinating. She climbs the solo mountain, establishes her name in lights, and then in 2021, she decides to step back into a collective.
Right.
She decides to build a band. And this ushers in the massive, explosive era of Golden Highway.
The formation of Golden Highway represents a shift from being a solo prodigy to becoming an architect.
I mean,
She realized that to fully realize the sound she was hearing in her head, she needed a very specific vehicle. She couldn't just hire a rotating cast of session musicians. She needed an ecosystem.
so in 2021, she introduces Molly Tuttle and Golden Highway. And this truly is a dream team.
Unbelievable lineup.
You have Shelby Means on bass, Kyle Tuttle, no relation, but an absolute force of nature on the banjo, Bronwyn Keith Hines on fiddle, and Dominic Leslie on mandolin.
Every single one of them is a top-tier player.
Exactly. And the critical distinction here is that everyone in this band is a star. They all share and support the vocals.
And that structure is a beautiful return to the origins of the music.
Oh, like the classic bands.
Yes. The classic bluegrass ensemble is a delicate ecosystem. It involves the single mic dance, where musicians physically weave in and out of the center space, stepping up for a solo and then melting back into the rhythm section.
I've seen videos of that. It's like choreography.
It really is. The harmonies are stacked and the spotlight is shared. She took the ensemble dynamic she learned as a teenager in the California Family Band and executed it with a roster of elite, modern masters. She was basically directing a high-performance engine.
And the broader industry immediately recognized the power of this engine. They signed with None Such Records, a label deeply respected for curating high art, boundary-pushing projects.
A great fit for them.
And in April 2022, they released the album Crooked Tree. And the impact is just monumental. Crooked Tree wins the Grammy Award for Best Bluegrass Album.
Huge achievement.
But the true indicator of how far she had pushed the genre came during the 65th Annual Grammy Awards, where Molly received a nomination for Best New Artist.
Now, we need to contextualize that because the Best New Artist category is an all-genre arena.
Right, she's not just up against acoustic musicians.
No, you are competing against the biggest pop stars, hip-hop icons, and mainstream rock bands on the planet. For an artist playing acoustic string music to break into the general field at the Grammys is a massive cultural disruption.
It's unheard of, really.
It meant the music she was making with Golden Highway wasn't just beloved by roots aficionados, it was tapping into the broader cultural zeitgeist. People who had literally never listened to a banjo in their lives were responding to the authenticity and the sheer energy of what they were doing.
They were an unstoppable force.
Uh,
I mean, they swept the 2023 IBMAs, winning Album of the Year for Crooked Tree, Song of the Year for the title track, and Female Vocalist of the Year for Molly.
and they didn't even take a breath.
No. In July 2023, they dropped the follow-up album, City of Gold, and the result. It won the Grammy for Best Bluegrass Album in 2024.
Back-to-back Grammys.
Back-to-back Grammys. They had
Yeah.
perfected the formula. But before we discuss what happens next, I think it is vital to bring all these threads together and look at the personal reality that underpins this specific era.
I agree, it's a very important layer.
We talked earlier about her diagnosis of alopecia universalis as a child. Throughout this entire journey, from Berkeley to the historic IBMA wins to standing on the Grammy red carpet, she has been navigating an entertainment industry that places a suffocating premium on physical aesthetics.
The visual economy of the music industry demands conformity. It just does.
Right. And to step into the brightest spotlights in the world, to be the subject of endless photo shoots and promotional cycles, all while navigating total hair loss. It requires a staggering amount of internal fortitude.
Absolutely.
We talked earlier about the guitar being a virtuosic armor when she was younger. Do you think that armor evolved as she stepped into this mainstream spotlight?
I think the armor evolved into radical transparency, honestly.
Radical transparency.
Yeah, because earlier in her career, the playing might have been a way to deflect attention from her appearance, to say, look at my hands, not my head.
Sure, a distraction.
But as she matured, she began to own her image entirely. She has spoken publicly about her condition. She has used her platform to destigmatize alopecia.
And she looks incredible doing it.
She does. To stand on a Grammy stage and be fully unapologetically yourself in an industry that profits off of insecurity is a profoundly rebellious act. It strips away the superficial noise and forces the audience to engage with the art itself.
Right.
The authenticity of her appearance basically mirrors the authenticity of her music. There is no artifice in either.
And it is beautiful to see that deep authenticity reflected in her personal life, too. Since 2023, she has been in a relationship with Ketch Sikor, a founding member of Old Crow Medicine Show.
Another massive figure in roots music.
Yeah, for anyone familiar with the Americana landscape, Old Crow is a legendary string band that fundamentally revived the genre for a new generation.
Yeah.
They share this deep, immersive connection to roots music.
Oh, for sure.
And as of December 3, 2025, they are officially engaged. It just paints a picture of someone who has built an incredibly solid foundation, both in her personal community and her professional legacy.
She reached a point of absolute security. She knew exactly who she was, she had a partner who understood the unique demands of her world, and she was fronting the most successful bluegrass band on the planet.
Right. Everything is perfect.
Which makes the psychology of her next decision a fascinating study in artistic philosophy.
It genuinely is one of the most surprising pivots in recent music history.
It shocked everybody.
Let's set the scene. It is the spring of 2025. Golden Highway has just secured their second consecutive Grammy for Best Bluegrass Album.
Okay.
They are headlining major festivals.
Selling out everywhere.
They have an audience that adores them and a formula that is critically and commercially flawless. And then, in May of 2025, Molly Tuttle announces she's dissolving Golden Highway.
Just ends it.
She announces the band is breaking up so the members can pursue solo projects. Now, wait a minute. I have to push back hard on this.
Okay, let's hear it.
From a business standpoint, from an industry standpoint, this sounds like self-sabotage.
Okay.
You have caught lightning in a bottle. You have a brand that is literally minting Grammys. Why on earth would you uncap the bottle, let the lightning out, and break up the most successful ensemble of your career?
This raises an important question, right? Because it looks like self-sabotage to a business executive, but to a creator, it is survival.
Survival, how?
What we are looking at here is the music industry version of the innovator's dilemma.
Okay, the tech concept.
Yes. When a company or an artist finds a highly successful formula, the natural instinct is to protect it, to optimize it, and to keep repeating it because it is safe and profitable.
Right, you make Crooked Tree Volume 3 and Volume 4.
Exactly. But historically, the artists who permanently alter the landscape, think of Miles Davis transitioning to electric jazz or Bob Dylan plugging in at Newport.
Right, they shock their fan bases.
They understand that the moment a sound is perfected, it becomes a cage. The safety of success is the enemy of discovery.
So she is blowing up her own business model before it can go stale.
Exactly. The dissolution of Golden Highway wasn't a fracture, it was a graduation. She recognized that the specific alchemy of that five-piece bluegrass ensemble had achieved its maximum potential.
They had done everything they could do together.
Right. She gave those brilliant musicians the space to step into their own solo spotlights, and by doing so, she cleared her own canvas. She refused to be trapped by her own Grammy-winning formula.
And she didn't spend years agonizing over the empty canvas either. Just 2 months later, in July of 2025, she is back on the road.
She moves fast.
But this time, she is touring with a brand new, all-female band. It is this wonderful echo of her Berkeley days with the Goodbye Girls or the First Ladies of Bluegrass, but now she's operating with the gravity of a mainstream headliner.
Right, the stakes are totally different now.
And then, on August 15, 2025, she drops a completely new album titled So Long Little Miss Sunshine.
And the title itself is a statement of intent.
It really sounds like it.
It suggests shedding a previous persona, leaving behind the bright, expected expectations of her past era.
And the sonic departure is massive. To produce this album, she brings in Jay Joyce. Now, I have to challenge this move as well.
I figured you would.
Jay Joyce is a phenomenal producer, but he is known for massive, edgy, rock-inflected country and mainstream Americana.
Right.
He produces Eric Church, Miranda Lambert, Keach the Elephant. He's not a traditional acoustic roots producer. Isn't this just the classic, predictable move?
The sellout move.
Yeah. The niche roots artist wants to cash in on a bigger mainstream audience, so they hire a rock country producer to smooth out their edges and make them radio-friendly. Is she just making a play for mainstream pop country here?
It is a valid suspicion because we have seen that exact scenario play out countless times in Nashville.
Right, the banjo gets buried under drum loops.
An acoustic artist gets a taste of success, and suddenly there are synthesizers drowning out the acoustic instruments. But analyzing the context of her journey, bringing in Jay Joyce isn't about selling out. It is about accessing a completely different color palette.
Okay, so what does he bring to her sound?
Joyce is famous for capturing raw, chaotic, live-in-the-room energy. By stepping out of the pristine acoustic parameters of pure bluegrass, she allows her songwriting to breathe in a heavier, more expansive atmosphere.
Ah, so it's less polished, not more.
Exactly. She isn't smoothing out her edges, she is sharpening them in a different direction. The lead single, That's Gonna Leave a Mark, has a grit and a swagger that requires that larger sonic footprint.
And the Recording Academy clearly understood the evolution. When the nominations for the 2026 Grammy Awards were announced, Molly Tuttle wasn't in the bluegrass categories anymore.
She moved up.
So Long Little Miss Sunshine was nominated for Best Americana Album, and the single was nominated for Best Americana Performance. She successfully shifted her center of gravity from the highly specific world of bluegrass to the massive, sprawling landscape of Americana.
And moving into the Americana field is the ultimate proof of her artistic maturity.
Because it's a broader category.
Because Americana encompasses folk, blues, country, rock, and bluegrass. It is a genre defined by its songwriting and its varied textures, rather than a strict adherence to specific instruments.
Gotcha.
In this space, she isn't just proving she is the fastest flat picker alive, she is proving she is a master storyteller who can serve the song, regardless of the arrangement.
And to fully grasp how far she has expanded her orbit, we just have to look at her collaborative roster in 2025. We know she works with bluegrass royalty like Billy Strings, but in 2025, she's featured as an artist on 3 distinct tracks with Ringo Starr.
A literal Beatle.
Yes, Ringo Starr. She's featured on the songs I Live for Your Love, Look Up, and Can You Hear Me Call? She goes from a 14-year-old high school freshman fighting to preserve a niche acoustic heritage to sitting in a studio collaborating with actual foundational rock and roll royalty.
It is a staggering arc, but it makes perfect logical sense when you trace the steps.
How so?
She can sit in a room with a Beatle or build a rock-infused Americana record with Jay Joyce precisely because she spent thousands of hours in Palo Alto mastering the rigorous discipline of bluegrass with her father.
The foundation was there.
She understands the mathematical foundation of music so deeply that she can speak to any musician in any genre. She mastered the strictest rules of American roots music, proved she was the absolute vanguard of that tradition, and then used that mastery as a foundation to build whatever she wanted.
She fundamentally redefined the entire concept of the virtuoso. She proved that technical mastery doesn't require sacrificing vulnerability, and that preserving a tradition doesn't mean you are locked inside it.
Well said.
Which brings us to the end of this audio journey, but I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to mull over on your own.
Hmm.
We all operate within systems of inherited traditions. We all face expectations, unspoken rules, and industry standards that tell us this is how it has always been done. But if someone steeped in a musical tradition as deeply conservative and historically rigid as bluegrass can shatter its gender barriers, navigate profound personal vulnerability of the visual spotlight, and then bravely dismantle her own Grammy-winning formula just to see what else she's capable of, what unspoken rules in your own life or career are keeping you in a safe, familiar cage? And more importantly, what wild, unmapped mountain could you conquer if you finally decided to break them?